I think the way that I play and write is different from a lot of people that I knew when I started, but I suspect it's very similar with a lot of other musicians that I just didn't grow up around, perhaps. But a lot of people kind of begin by learning other people's songs, and I never ever learned another song, because I would kind of, when I learned the Dream On, I didn't even care about what happened after the intro. Like I just didn't care, because what I was really gravitating towards was that guitar line. That's what spoke to me. And then also, when I got a book of chords to learn how to just play like C, D, E, A, G, A minor, stuff like that. And those are the basic chords that you can play like all of Bob Dylan's catalog with. But before I would bother to kind of figure out a Bob Dylan song, I would just be like, but wait, like C and A minor, these chords sound good to me, and I would just immediately get bored of learning someone else's song and try and write something of my own with these chords I learned. But then I kind of quickly moved past that, which again I think is probably something that all musicians do, to just what sounded good to me. And then you kind of realize, oh well, the chords that are in this book are really boring considering all the weird chords that I can make. And then you kind of realize that you're never really going to invent a chord. It'll be some weird jazzy inversion that has a name, it's a suspended minor seventh and things like that. But I didn't necessarily pick it up in my book of the basics. When I started getting into music and thinking it was something I could do myself was when I was 15. When I started getting kind of absorbed by music in that kind of compulsive way that I think most artists go through, I was probably a little younger. Like I kind of picked up a guitar around 13 to try and learn how to play Dream On by Aerosmith, which was the song that I was like listening to compulsively at that moment. I went through kind of a classic rock phase, and so it was Dream On when I kind of realized, okay, I really want to, the only way I can think of getting closer to this song is by playing it actually. So then I had a guitar in the house, so I picked up the guitar and tried to get people to show me how to play the song. That was when I picked up the guitar, and then when I decided that it would be a career or a life choice was when I was 15. And then I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to go do. When I was 13, it was the song Dream On by Aerosmith that kind of, I was so enthralled by that song, and I listened to it so much that I just had to learn how to play it, and that was really what drew me to a guitar, was just to somehow be even more close to this particular song. Which to this day I think is kind of a funny song, because it doesn't even sound like Steven Tyler. After that song I've never been that big of an Aerosmith fan, and in fact even at that time, like Walk This Way and stuff, I was like, something about his voice in that song still, like I think Dream On is just a classic song, and it almost sounds like a different band. Because I started writing my own stuff when I was about 15, I think what I was listening to at that age, I'd gone through a hip-hop phase when I was younger even, and then around 13 I think I was just listening to a lot of classic rock and Beatles and a lot of Jimi Hendrix, a lot of stuff like America, just kind of classic rock, and I guess my dad's vinyl collection, so there's a lot of Beatles, Stones, Brian Ferry, Dire Straits. I actually used to like when I was a kid, Pink Floyd. But I listened to a lot of Jimi Hendrix, and then I was into Suicidal Tendencies around the time that I started playing. Shortly after I started playing, I got into the Pixies and Velvet Underground, Jane's Addiction. Ritual de lo Habitual was a huge influence on me. Before I started playing, I think I was probably about 13, and I used to study that record, like really, went really deep. And that I think, now I'm older, I look back at some of the music I was listening to at that time, and I can really get a sense of how, like, obviously I gravitated to certain music, but that music also left a real indelible mark on me as far as like what kind of dimensions I wanted to seek in music. And so with like, with the Jane's Addiction, you get that epic quality, you get like the kind of sleaziness, and you get real passion. So I think, I responded with Nirvana, I liked the aggression and the passion of it. Bands like Jane's Addiction, it was just that epic quality. But then I was also a really big Bob Dylan fan around that age, and Leonard Cohen Leonard Cohen was later. But I was listening to some folk. I think I listened to really a big mix match of stuff. It's all really memorable to me because that was the period of time, like 13 to 15, when it was like really fermenting for me that was what I was going to go and do with my life. The story with me and hip-hop, I don't know how it really came to be, but when I was in 7th grade, I guess Straight Outta Compton came out, And how old does that make you? 7th grade, like 12? So something about Straight Outta Compton, I don't know what it was. Like, for instance, Express Yourself, I really didn't like that song. And that was the song, like, when I was 12, I was like, this song is kind of annoying. Everything else on the record I was really, really into. The same thing kind of went for a big Sugar record that was really influential for me. It was like, If I Can't Change Your Mind, I couldn't hear that song. I thought that was like the worst song on the record by a mile. And everything else on the record was pure brilliance. And in both those cases, like, those were the singles from those records. So, but anyway, so Straight Outta Compton, I don't know, man. I remember like walking around when I was 12, just reciting Ice Cube's verses, and you know, in F the Police, there's some really memorable stuff. Then I had my favorite, like MC Ren was my favorite guy, and Eazy-E was probably a close second. But I think it all started with them, and then I had a buddy that was listening to a lot of Too Short, and it's kind of funny because now in the new millennium, I'm more a fan of Too Short than I was back then. Like, I kind of get what he was doing, but I think a lot of it, maybe for my youthful self, it was probably just how explicit it was. You know, I think I've always responded to extremes, so just how aggro NWA was probably just kind of like titillated, you know, me as a kid, because, you know, Two Live Crew was also great, but I think I wouldn't have stuck with NWA as much as I did if I didn't find the music to be so rewarding and great. And anyway, I think that was, then it was all I could find, anything that any of those guys did solo. I got all the Eazy-E records, I got NWA and the Posse. There was this like weird record that they had that was like this amazing cover art, and there was just some, I guess, I was picking up on, I remember at that time like almost getting some insight in the way that like when something gets hot, they'll just put stuff out, or like the label will just put out stuff to find, you know, ways to generate income, because some of it didn't quite feel like, you know, wasn't holding up to as, you know, was no Straight Outta Compton. So Julian Plenti's Skyscraper came out in August of this year, and it's the debut record, but it's some of the material on the album I've been kicking around for years, and it was really the first time that I put together like a selection of songs from this body of work that I'd amassed with this project, and it was really exciting to kind of pick which ones I wanted to put out on the first record and kind of get a balance of really, really new recent material, as well as sort of documenting the stuff that I'd worked on in the past that meant a lot to me, that I felt like if a Julian Plenti record is going to happen, then On the Esplanade has to be on the record, and Fly As You Might has to be on the record, and those are both songs that have been with me for a long time, but never been released. And so I kind of just learned by ear, and then I didn't even bother finishing learning songs. You know, I could play the intros to a bunch of songs. But then that also kind of means that I never really identify with people that when they say like, oh, I've got to practice guitar, I'm learning guitar, but I got to practice, because to me I never practiced playing guitar. It was really this call, like once you get in and like you have your own song that sucks, you know, it's like everybody starts off like that girl from Friends in the cafe. Like everybody's first song is that, and everybody has that feeling of this is amazing, listen, and then there's that like no wait check, no wait, you know, and then that like stuttering process of showing somebody your first songs, and they, you know, they're always, you know, not great, but you get just drawn into it. I think if you're cut out to be making music, you just get drawn into it, and so then it's never work, it's never actually practice, it's just you get better by doing what you love to do, and I think that's a real kind of privilege, and you're lucky if you get a calling like that. But so that's why I never really understand people talk about how it's hard, or like I got to go practice, but it's so hard. It's like, well, I don't even know what it's like to think about it in those terms, you know.